Hello and welcome to the Jacksonville Jaguars rebuild franchise. We will be starting this franchise in the first week of free agency. I've gone through the remainder of the 2024 season. I finished 6-11 with the Jaguars. We did end up playing decent down the stretch, taking some games against some lower level teams, kind of almost draft position battles, as we lost to the Texans and the Jets, both home games, beat the Titans twice in that period in somewhat closer games, real close game in Las Vegas as well. And then the final game of the season really took it to the Colts with a 38-20 victory. Following the regular season, this is how the playoff picture ended up shaping out. The Lions completely ran the table in the NFC side, obviously with their week one bye. Then they played the Packers, who beat the Cardinals. The Eagles played the Vikings, and then the 1 and 2 seed ended up playing in a very close game in the NFC Championship, where the Lions did advance to the Super Bowl, who they would end up playing the Chargers, beating the Dolphins in the AFC Championship. Chargers played some real good games against good teams, beat the Ravens handedly, the Texans as well, facing two division winners as the top wild card team. Ended up playing the Cinderella story Dolphins, who beat the Chiefs in the first round and then advanced, squeaking by division rival the Buffalo Bills to face the Chargers, who ended up losing by 1 point in the Super Bowl to the Detroit Lions. Lions completely outgained the Chargers in this game. Obviously, the passing yards pretty even from both teams. Lions able to run the ball well and separate. No scoring. Sorry, excuse me. 7-6 in the fourth quarter was the difference. Game was tied at 21 heading into that final quarter. So, with that being said, following the Super Bowl, the Jaguars, who had fired Doug Peterson, ended up hiring Ben Johnson to be the new head coach of the squad. Let's run through the new staff of this team. Starting with the general manager, we ended up firing general manager Trent Baalke, former 49er stud general manager, kind of an old school style general manager, for Alec Halaby from the Philadelphia Eagles. He was hand selected by the owner, as well as at the time Ben Johnson, who had been brought in before him and had preferred that style of general managing. Alec Halaby very focused on pro guys, college guys, and the analytics of them. Has worked with the Eagles for a while now, and obviously been very successful there under Howie Roseman. Offensive coordinator coming over from Detroit as well, following Ben Johnson, is Scotty Montgomery, the running backs coach. He will be moving into more of that running game coordinator, offensive coordinator role. Ben Johnson obviously will be the play caller, and we look to have our two-headed running back approach of ETN and Bigsby, somewhat modeled after Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Defensive coordinator, we ended up hiring Al Harris from the Dallas Cowboys. He is a defensive back guru, has done a good job with talents like Deron Bland, Trevon Diggs, and multiple other DBs who he has gotten the most out of potentially. We are looking at improving our DB room in this upcoming offseason, whether that's through free agency or the draft, and he will definitely be a big part of implementing those changes. And with that, we look now into some of the players who have retired already as we enter the first stage of free agency. A couple veterans here: Case Keenum, Harrison Smith, Stephon Gilmore, Nick Folk, great kicker. Russell Wilson is gone, Cam Hayward, Jason Peters, an offensive tackle. Some defensive replacements for the Saints in Jordan and Davis. Bobby Wagner is gone. Adam Thielen and Andy Dalton from the Panthers will be retiring. Ryan Tannehill, who won a Super Bowl as the Lions' backup. Kevin Zeitler and Allen Robinson from that team. Tyrod Taylor, Tyron Smith, Aaron Rodgers, Morgan Moses, and Thomas Morstead. Real big hits to the Jaguars here as they lose those guys. Graham Gano will be gone from the Giants. Brandon Graham from the Eagles. Calais Campbell, real good defensive linemen, including Linval Joseph, Travis Kelce, and DeAndre Hopkins Hopkins gone as well from the Chiefs. Levante David, another key name from the Bucks. Kelvin Beachum, an offensive tackle from the Cardinals. Defensive studs from the Bills in Kareem Jackson and Von Miller. A lot of real good players. For the first week of re-signing, there also was quite a few free agent guys who hadn't been on rosters but were somewhat decent players that ended up retiring as well. Justin Pugh, Jason Pierre-Paul, Patrick Peterson, Jerick McKinnon, Julio Jones, Melvin Ingram, just to name a few of these guys. Jimmy Graham, Mason Crosby, Randall Cobb. Yeah, quite a few names end up retiring. Now let's take a look at what the Jaguars have done up to this point in the franchise. A lot of moves in terms of positional things, just to fit the schemes better, of moving to a 4-3 with Al Harris as our D coordinator. In terms of the signings, obviously the two coordinators, head coach and general manager, are all new. Signing guys from the practice squad. Otherwise, no one really has been signed to the team yet. Did end up re-signing Andre Cisco to a 2-year, $9 million contract, and then trying to remain in touch with reality a little bit. Walker Little, who was signed to a 3-year, $30 million contract, ended up being brought in for 3 years, $21 million in this franchise. He was asking for $5 million in the franchise. $10 million is what he got in real life. I felt $7 was a good middle ground to make that realistic. We ended up picking up Trayvon Walker and Devin Lloyd's 5th-year options, pretty affordable, and these guys were pretty good down the stretch for us and definitely going to be parts of our forward. Other than that, not many players re-signed. We ended up letting Brandon Scherf and Mac Jones walk, just to name a few of the guys. Wasn't a ton, though, to bring in. And we also made quite a few moves in terms of releasing players. Sorry to all Jags fans if any of these guys are fan favorites, but fan favorites don't necessarily win games, as these were some guys that I felt just weren't going to be making the cut of the team. And with that being said, I think we are ready to go check out the free agents. Before we do, we quickly look at the top prospects. We're obviously implementing the real life 2025 most accurate draft class that I've found. I believe it's Sports Gaming Rosters who released it, so if you haven't seen his, go check it out. This is the newest November 2024 drop that he has put in. Obviously, some combine times have come in, and we'll get to check that out. These are the top players in the draft. We will be picking at 8, as currently there is no 8th projected player apparently. But if we want to go look at the first mock draft that was done, we are at 8 picking Will Johnson, who was projected, the Michigan corner. This would be huge if he fell down to us at just 21 years old. Obviously, some of those combine numbers not jumping off the page completely. Good in man, good in zone, decent press guy, all around, just a very good player. Definitely a position group that we're going to be looking to improve. We enter this free agency with $54.5 million in cap. We look to add at different positions, still determining what our biggest team needs are. Obviously, some of these top guys probably not going to be the biggest targets for us. Some of the top guys in the class that have interest in us: Mike Hilton, Keenan Allen, Jalen Warren, Jordan Mason, Jeremy Chin, Cam Robinson looking to return to the Jaguars potentially. A lot of these guys, though, probably a little beyond our age range that we're currently looking at due to the fact that we're in the middle of a rebuild right now. Might have to make some roster moves before we jump too deep, though, into signing free agents. We will be offloading Evan Ingram, 30-year-old tight end, to the Chiefs for a 3rd and 7th round pick. Don't know if this will go through. Looking at their cap, we might have to work around some stuff, potentially restructure his contract, but I will let you know when we get this done. So we did have to pivot because of the Chiefs' financial situation. We ended up looking towards the Broncos, who are looking to build with Bo Nix. I feel like they could use Evan Ingram more than we can at this point, but we will be sending him over for a 4th this year and a future 7. Did base that trade off of the Darren Waller trade. I felt it was somewhat similar. I ended up getting a little bit lower value for Evan Ingram, but I feel that's pretty appropriate for what we got in that trade. That being said, we now have $68 million moving forward. I might take a look at seeing what kind of contracts we have, seeing if any veterans could potentially hit the road as cap casualties. Tarek Brown frees up about $1 million if we do get rid of him. He doesn't fit our scheme anymore. Also, some of the athleticism thresholds are just not up to my standard. We will be leaving him for $1.1 million with a 30K penalty. Currently, the big thing I'm looking at is the Christian Kirk deal. We have Parker Washington, Brian Thomas, Gabe Davis, a lot of guys that I want to get snaps to, especially the first two guys that I mentioned. Paying this much money to Christian Kirk could be something that we'd end up regretting. However, having that veteran in the room could be a decent thing. No tags on him though, as kind of a mentor though, but we'll definitely be monitoring that going forward in the offseason. I think that Monteric Brown will likely be the only cap cut we make due to just the sheer money we have right now. Don't really currently looking at the roster. Obviously, some certain holes all across the offensive line. Ended up giving up our starting right guard in Brandon Scherf. Ezra Cleveland, really one of the only bright spots. We have Walker Little on a big deal. Anton Harrison, coming off of a rookie year, is only normal development. Do end up getting Brian Thomas to a superstar dev, which is pretty cool. As well as having these two running backs in the backfield, definitely fitting that Ben Johnson play calling well. Tight end now becomes a need as well with Evan Ingram gone. Looking at the D line, definitely the interior spot could use some work. Linebackers don't look too bad, and then the corner room could use some help. Tyson Campbell kind of doing a lot on his own there. So with that being said, I've laid out our top team needs for this offseason. Offensive line, tight end, interior D line, and corner. I think there's a lot of guys throughout free agency and the draft that will help meet those needs. But in the draft, we are also looking to just get the best players, not always exactly what would give us the positional need being met. But we're going to look through some tight ends. I'll let you know if anyone sparks some interest here that we end up offering. We do only have, I believe, one on the roster, so definitely going to add some. Looking at this class and the guys who are not a ton of good stuff going on here, so I doubt that there will be too many free agents offered in this group. But once I end up getting all of our 5 active negotiations set for the first eval period, I'll let you know and we'll keep track of that together. Alright, looking at our targeted players, 3 guys that I ended up going after in this first round of free agency. Will Fries, guard from the Colts. Daryl Baker, a corner who will probably step into one of our starting outside roles, barring any rookie corner that we end up taking. And Jameis Winston as our backup quarterback. Has the mentor tag, would probably be good guy to have in the room with Lawrence, as well as just a good vibes guy overall. Let's take a look at how this ends up going for us as we evaluate the offers. Currently still sitting on top of everyone after our first eval period. Going to be looking to sign some of these guys though as we move. Still no one budging. Daryl Baker has told us that he's received a better offer from the Giants. Going to look to up our offer for sure. We want to bring this guy in. We have upped our offer on him. We head into the last eval period of the first week of free agents. Did end up bringing in Baker for our corner room, as that ends the first week of free agency with Will Fries and Winston still considering our offers and determining whether or not they would like to go up as a Jaguar this season. A couple quick number changes. Daryl Baker being added to the team will take number 39, as Cam Little will move to number 29 at Arkansas. With that, we should be able to advance to the next week of free agency, start offering potentially some more players. I don't know how many more we necessarily will offer. Just make sure we're staying on top of the guys we have offered. Could potentially add a fullback, but we'll see whether we end up doing that or not. Still have the leading and only offer for Will Fries and Winston. Didn't realize that Darrell Baker was also a Colt. We brought in 2 Colts now this offseason. Some division rivals moving across down to Jacksonville, playing for the DUUUVAL squad. We have decided to go through and add one more player, that's Taysom Hill, to our targeted list. Could be a guy that plays fullback, tight end for us. That's a position that's pretty light right now as in our tight end room. Definitely brings some good athleticism, kind of a all-around wild card type player. So could be fun to have him in the room as well as Jameis Winston. With that, we do bring in Will Fries, who ends up signing, showing little interest in us now. Not exactly sure what changed. Current projected depth, I guess, is low, which will end up changing. So he should be pretty happy in his new starting role as our right guard. But don't really plan on offering too many more guys. We'll see what Hill and Winston end up deciding to do here. Looks like they will all sign with us. Free agency has been a decent little addition for us here. We've added some guys at positions of need. I don't know necessarily whether or not some of these guys are going to be starters for sure, but definitely going to make the roster and fill out their roles accordingly. So again, the guys we added, number changes, number 70 for Fries, number 17 for Taysom Hill, and number 2 for Jameis. Looking at the mock draft, we have now moved to the 9th pick. Not sure how that exactly happened, where we're projected to take edge rusher James Pierce out of Tennessee. Not necessarily sure how I feel about getting bumped out so far down the draft order like this. Would like to add potentially one of these corners at the top in Hunter or Johnson to our corner room, as well as maybe some O linemen who are projected to currently fall below us in Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell from LSU. And in the last week of free agency, we've offered Boogie Basham a depth role for us at D end, Troy Dye and Del'Shawn Phillips to be some depth linebackers, both 28 years old on one-year deals, and 25-year-old receiver converted to tight end Justin Shorter. Definitely brings some athleticism to the position. An interesting option, potentially, I believe, a practice squad eligible guy as well. So with those 4 guys, not the best offers to them. Gonna just kind of offer them what we feel would be a bench role salary, as well as, very limited in the guaranteed money. So with that, let's get some evals going here and see if we can bring any of these guys in to DUUUVAL. Does look like we bring in Boogie Basham, who overall is the 3rd highest player in our class. Probably the guy I was most wanting out of that crew. Troy Dye and Del'Shawn Phillips sign as well. Currently just waiting on Justin Shorter. And he does not end up signing in free agency. Will decide to take his chances going into a camp and hopefully making a roster spot later on. So we're going to go through and make sure we edit up those guys. I'll let you know on some number changes when we get there, as we add Boogie Basham to our D end room. Probably could have went more for the speed rusher, considering we have a lot of that. Or excuse me, we could have went for... Is he a speed rusher? I thought he was a power rusher. Okay, yeah, we probably could have went for more of that power rusher archetype. I think that's also something that's a little bit easier to add than the guys who are so athletic with that the bend around the edge. So we'll get the numbers changed on these guys, and I'll let you know what we're going to do going forward, probably close to the end of the video here, as we'll be doing the draft in the next episode. So Boogie Basham Jr. will wear 55 for us. Actually, I did end up flipping. Del'Shawn Phillips will wear 43. Troy Dye will be in 45. That takes us to the end of free agency, where we can look at the recap of where some of the top players went. Zach Martin, guard, going to the Packers. Cooper to the Chargers. I'm going to look through and see if any big division rivals have made some moves to pick up top free agents. Mike Hilton goes to the Texans. Will Hernandez was not signed. 29-year-old, 80 overall star or normal dev guard. Could be a guy that we look to add going into camp if we're not super happy with our O-line play. J.K. Scott, punter, goes to the Colts. We end up losing Brandon Scherf to the Lions. Daquan Jones to the Texans. Micah Hyde goes to the Colts. Starting to get into the range of having some more bench players, so that was interesting. Some of the division rivals not super active in free agency. We only had one guy in that range as well, I believe, that we ended up bringing in. But with that being said, thank you for watching the first episode. Next episode will be the draft. Going to be kind of a full draft experience, so strap in for that. and make sure to like and subscribe. I will see you in the next one.